before, it's about finding the right balance. It's difficult in an FPS shooter because you have those situations. How far is too much? Do you just change the entire game to make it seem like you're hiding in a corner, or do you allow for an experience in which you can still run out and do that? Because games like Doom that are what Halo 1 Combat Evolved followed on and iterated is those type of games where you have to figure out when to jump in, when to find the right time to pick up the certain pickups that you need to keep going. And another thing about Doom, which Halo doesn't have, is that Halo is stuck on the 2-weapon problem, where you're forced to always keep one weapon that is worth using, like the plasma pistol, or a weapon that's really powerful enough to get you across, and then you can use the other weapon that you really wanted to use, a pistol or battle rifle, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. Versus Doom, where you get a weapon wheel with like 8 different weapons, and you can choose when to use them whenever you want. And it's like, maybe I'll use the RPG for this specific guy because I want to kill him really fast, but then I'll use my minigun to take down the lower level guys. Then I'll use a rifle to aim from far away and try. You're kind of changing. There's a different dynamic in Halo. You have a lot of the situation of Legendary is you standing far away and shooting from far away at a range, like like a regular shooter. In Halo 1, you felt more close range because the weapons weren't necessarily far range in those times. You got more assault rifles and SMGs. In Doom, you get all those weapons. So at one point in the same scenario, you can be fighting one guy with a shotgun and a chainsaw, and the next second you have an RPG and shooting him from mid range and jumping around, and then the following second after that, you're using a sniper and doing like a far off battle all at the same time while there's 10 different enemies attacking you.
So you brought up Doom. Actually, I want to actually see some of this gameplay while we started that note.
Doom is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, I haven't seen Ultra Nightmare difficulty. I've seen Nightmare difficulty, but it's going to be interesting because Ultra Nightmare makes people cry like little kids. It makes them turn into little babies.
So let's check this out. Let's see what's going on here. Let me take this ad out. You don't get to advertise on our stream, bro. You ain't even a part of this.
Bruh.
All right, so let's see what's going on here. Right now, he's on a bridge looking back and forth. All right. So this is the first Doom, right?
Yeah, this is Doom 2016, not necessarily the first Doom, but the first next gen.
So
Doom.
Emerald said what you said, Jordan. Most games cater to one style and keep it that way, which it becomes stagnant.
Right, and that's actually true because a lot of games end up. It's easier to balance one thing than to balance all those things. Which again, going off of what O Rivera 1997 said, and what I said at the beginning of the podcast, that's why the Soul series is the best, in my opinion, at creating proper difficult challenge. Because it allows you to understand, grow, and implement the different mechanics in the game. There's like 10 different starting classes, fire, magic, defensive abilities, offensive abilities, just straight up swords, different types of swords. Some are sluggish and slow, some are pretty long and can only attack in one direction. Some can swipe, side to side. There's different types of mechanics in that game, which we're going to get to towards the end, hopefully, if we get that far. That shows what true balance is in a game. It allows you to do all those different types of things.
So Lime Lions is asking about online ranking systems, which is actually an interesting question because that's one way to attempt to moderate difficulty in online play. So my opinion on that, specifically, online ranking systems work not 100%. There's a way where it works at some level, but I think, for example, skill-based matchmaking isn't an answer to appropriate online ranking. The reason why I say that is because, it's really impossible to measure the proper metrics of what makes a player good or bad. Maybe a lot of players are just too inconsistent, and that could really end up messing things up. And then all that really ends up happening is that all your matches will just basically feel the same, like really hyper competitive and sweaty. There won't really be matches where you have opportunities to go off and maybe you have opportunities to fight harder players. You'll just always be pretty much playing players that are constantly at your skill level.
Let me rein you back in there real quick because I wanted to point out, like, PvP, honestly, we didn't come super prepared to talk about that topic, so we apologize. But that's actually something that we're going to do in a future episode because it's something, there's a lot to talk about. There's what's the right balance, what is considered skill, do they base it off of how many wins you have, how many kills you have, and then also like the player base too. Is there enough players to fill in those ranks? Is it that once people start and they get to level 50, what happens to the level 1 guys? Do they get to play level 1 players as well, or do they go and play level 50 because that's all that's left in the community? That's a whole different topic that we would have to discuss. In greater depth.
I feel like
which Halo 2 and 3 I think were the best ones at doing that. But anyways,
yeah, I think the best solution to that is essentially having a ranked playlist separate from the like the other game types or whatever, just because it'll really like that will truly allow you to choose to go ahead and play what difficulty you want to play. And yeah, I just feel like that's the best solution.
Yeah, and like I said, it's gonna be like a really hard topic to follow up on, because there's so many different things that can go into that. But I'll definitely come prepared in a future episode with that topic. Well, both of us will, to really talk on that, because that's like a really in-depth topic. But yeah, it's a good point you brought up about PvP and ranking systems. So anyways, to go back to Doom, you can see like in this game, kind of like a similar system where you're kind of choosing your sight lines and learning when to attack, how to attack. But you can see that the guy is like more up front because he has to figure out how to use his weapons, which aren't necessarily all far ranged, to properly seek out the right areas on the map to attack, and also to take down the more high priority enemies.
Yeah, he really seems like he's customizing his weapons a bit too, where that's absent in the Halo games that we just looked at. You just basically find the weapons across the map, and whatever you get's what you get. Here it looks like you could actually get your weapons, modify them, customize them to make them better.
The customization isn't like a regular game though. It's not like you're just increasing damage. It actually gives you a different ability for the weapon, like maybe an assault rifle that shoots mini rockets, for example. That's the kind of upgrade you get in. Oh
wow, this is crazy! There's a boss fight right now going on. A boss just popped out. It was a big fat blob demon, and he killed it fairly fast. But I noticed that he switched his weapons multiple times. He switched between like 3 or 4 different weapons. Constantly, like consistently, and he was just laying damage on him,
Right, because he has a weapon that can pierce, he has a weapon that can stagger, and he has a high damage weapon, and then he has, of course, the explosive weapon. So he's using all these different weapons to kind of figure out how he wants to go. And you can see in the map, he's not hiding behind a corner. He's running around the map quickly to take out the high priority enemies while doing a lot of crowd control.
He got a power up now too. It says quad damage. So it's pretty interesting that they added that, stuff that really can help out your stats if you pick them up, buffs and all that sort of thing. It actually adds a lot of variety and freshness to the gameplay as well.
This is and Halo has overshields and they have stuff like that, but in this game they obviously took it a bit further. They added like armor. The classic rage mode, armor. Yeah, armor, which would be like his overshield, I guess, and then he has the regular health. But you can see like the game doesn't force you to sit down and stop. Rather, Doom is about moving fast and being strategic with how you fight. And in an Ultra Nightmare, instead of making you hide in the corner and change the game drastically, it pushes you further upon that principle that first created it, which is what I keep trying to say, where it challenges you to use your entire tool set and toolkit as best as possible so you can get across the game. And that's what the guy's doing. He learned how to use all his guns, when to use them, how to properly manage his ammo with what's available to him within the map, and then he uses that and pushes it even further along speed, aim, and prioritizing the right enemies to kill first. So that's how he's able to get across Ultra Nightmare. Rather than changing the dynamic of the game entirely into a meta, it's actually pushing him to use everything the game has at another level, or like to improve his skill set. That's what I wanted to say versus the Halo thing, where in Halo you get pushed to play one style only. This game balances out so you can use all these different styles, and then pushes you to go even further with them and make you really think about what you're using. It's not just I'm running in there and just guns a-blazing because Doom. It's now I die really fast. Now I have to figure out how to do this and when I want to do it. You want to add anything?
No, yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think also something that ends up keeping it a lot fresher. Maybe it would have been a lot harder to do back in the first 2 Halos time, is that there's a lot of like an element of like platforming in this game and like traversal through the map. Like the map design seems to be a lot fresher, and also enemy variety seems to be pretty different. I mean, Halo did a good job of having different types of enemies and everything, but Doom looks like it went even a step further with that. So maybe that adds to it too, and it's just a lot more collectibles, different things you pick up.
But I want to add too. This is Doom 2016 and Doom, the first Doom, you didn't have the ability to jump or do anything. You can only move in a Z axis, in an X axis. There's only, omnidirectional movement. There's no jumping. There's no.
He just jumped. He just jumped. There's platforming.
I'm saying the original Doom. I'm talking about Doom 1996.
Like Doom.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is just an advanced version or an improved version on the iteration. They're basically iterating on what originally made Doom. So all you see in Doom here, the difference is the jumping, the different power-ups, the way that he can do takedowns at times to get health back. And that's all in the original Doom. But what they did here that made it more interesting is that they added the Z to the game. Z, for those of you who don't know, is the ability to jump up in a omnidirectional sense. Because you have the Y-axis, which is just you jumping up or moving down in a level, and then you have the X, which is just moving around walking around in the same height. But then the Z is you jumping forward and platforming in different directions at the same time. That's what gives Doom 2016 its edge compared to the previous games, and what makes it unique, because you're fighting enemies on different levels. They can shoot you from up above, down below, and you have to figure out when to jump down, when to hide, when to run, that sort of stuff, which is why I consider it to be a more balanced and fair fight. And these fights, to be honest with you, this is the early game. This is supposed to be the easy stuff too. Because when you get to the end game and you start fighting I forget the name of the boss, but like the spirit boss, mini bosses that can literally teleport behind you and shock you and do all these extra crazy things, that's when the game starts getting hectic and you're like, oh snap. And you can't hide, because once you start hiding, they just teleport behind you.
Yeah, I was going to say that I couldn't be mistaken, but just from watching the gameplay that we're watching right now, it doesn't look like he's having the hardest time. But again, it also, I think, goes back to the fact that there's so many things that he's picking up while he's running through this map here that I just think that it's just a different type of difficulty. Honestly, I want to try this game out for myself and see what opinions I form then. But I guess we just have to find out if that difficulty is actually one that's satisfying or not.
We showed off Halo 2 Legendary from a guy that died a little bit, so we can kind of make our point of like how fast you die and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure we can find a player that isn't that great at Doom either, and he kind of dies a lot in Ultra Nightmare, because in Ultra Nightmare, in reality, if you die, you start the whole game again. It's a permadeath type of difficulty. But there's people in Halo 2 that have gone like literally no damage, never get touched, and they figure out how to break out of the map and do this and that, or just literally destroy the entire, like all the enemies without even bothering.
Hey there guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Co-op Syndicate. Make sure to check out both the Co-op Syndicate main channel and clip channel to get all of our content. If you haven't already, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the bell as well so that you never miss out on any future episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your friends and family, or you could also share it on any social media website of your liking. If you guys would prefer to listen to our podcast on the go instead of viewing the full episode on YouTube, consider checking the Co-op Syndicate podcast out at TheCo-OpSyndicate.buzzsprout.com. We host the Co-op Syndicate on Buzzsprout, and it is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. If you'd like to watch us as we record the podcast live, you could actually give us a follow at twitch.tv/Co-op Syndicate. We go live every Thursday and Saturday at 4:30 p.m. If you'd like to support the channel, you could consider subscribing to us with Amazon Prime for free over there. If you'd like to participate in community events and talk to other members of the community, consider joining our Discord, which I will leave the links to in the description down below. If you would like to support the podcast and get rewarded in return, consider pledging to our podcast at patreon.com/Co-op Syndicate, where you can support us at many different levels. There are multiple tiers that offer all sorts of different rewards for the level that you choose to support us at, including Discord privileges, merch, gift cards, and much more. Also, if you would just like the merch directly without pledging to the Patreon, you could buy our merch at merch.streamelements.com/Co-op Syndicate. Lastly, if you'd like to keep up with Jordan or I outside of the Co-op Syndicate, you can find us on every social media platform under Michael C. Moore for myself or JG_Mark1 for Jordan. Thank you guys again, and until next time, happy listening.